You're on the couch, thumb moving down the contacts, looking for someone else, and you scroll right past a name. Just for a second, it snags you. You haven't dialed that number in years. There was a time you called that person every day. They knew your bad boss, your first apartment, the girl who broke your heart. You didn't schedule it, you just talked. Now the name just sits there, stored. A row of digits you'd probably still know by heart if someone asked. But you don't call, and you can't quite say when you stopped. Here's the thing nobody warns you about. Most friendships don't end. There's no blow-up, no final word. They just stop. One quiet day, without either of you deciding, they simply go still. And you've got more of those names than you think. Whole rows of people who were once your whole week. Still in your pocket, still there, just quiet now. So how does a person you spoke to every day become a stranger you're afraid to text? That's the strange part about a name gone quiet. You keep waiting for the moment it ended, the argument, the slammed door, the reason you could point to. But there wasn't one. That's what nobody warns you about. There was a text once. A good one. They asked how you were doing, meant it, and you smiled reading it. You told yourself you'd answer tonight when things settled down. You just needed a quiet minute. The quiet minute never came. Tonight became tomorrow. Tomorrow became the weekend. And by the time you remembered, answering felt strange, like too much time had passed to say something small. So you didn't. And they noticed, the way you'd have noticed. Maybe they figured you were busy. Maybe they meant to try again, and they let it drop too, for the very same reason you did. That's the whole mechanism, not a break. A fade. Nobody chose it. Nobody announced it. Just 100 small tonights that turned into later, and a later that never arrived. And here's what still gets me. If someone had told either of you, this is it, this is the last easy conversation, you'd have held on tighter. But nobody knows which one is the last. It never feels like an ending. It just feels like a busy week. None of that drifting used to be possible, because there was a time when you never had to try. You just showed up somewhere every day, and your friends were already there, waiting like furniture. Remember it? School did all the work for you. Same building, same bell, same walk home. You didn't schedule a friendship. You just sat in the next desk over, and it happened. The old neighborhood was the same. A knock on a screen door, a bike dropped on a lawn. You didn't call ahead to see somebody. You just went outside, and outside was where everybody was. Then the first job, the first apartment. A roommate you barely knew, who became the person you told everything to at midnight, standing in a kitchen the size of a closet, eating cereal because payday was still 3 days off. That's the thing about those years. Proximity did all the heavy lifting. You never had to pick your friends on purpose. Life just kept setting you down in the same rooms, over and over. And because it never took effort, you assumed it never would. You thought that ease was the friendship itself. You didn't know it was the address doing the work. And addresses change. Then one day the proximity was gone, and something else moved into its place. A house with your name on the loan. A payment that showed up every single month, whether you were ready or not. You weren't avoiding your friends. You were just tired in a way you'd never been before. The kind of tired that a Friday night can't fix. The kind that follows you into Saturday morning. And then the kids came. Small, loud, needing everything. Suddenly, your evenings weren't yours to give away. Bath time, bottles, a crying that didn't care what plans you'd made. The old crew would text about grabbing a beer, and you'd read it standing in a kitchen full of dishes, a kid on your hip, and think, not this week, maybe next week. Next week never came. Meanwhile, the job wanted more. The promotion, the late hours, the climb everyone told you mattered. You gave it your best years, your sharpest energy, the hours you used to spend just being with people. Nobody sat you down and made you choose. That's the thing, there was no meeting where you decided friends were expendable. They just kept losing. Every week, quietly, to something louder. And you told yourself it was temporary. Just this season. Just until the kids grew, until the money settled, until work eased up. You believed you'd get back to it. You believed there'd be time. Not all of them faded because you were busy. Some of them just packed a truck and left. A new job 3 states over, a spouse's family, a fresh start, and you stood in the driveway waving. You meant it when you said you'd visit. You both did. It's only a flight, you told each other. We'll do a long weekend, get the families together. You believed every word. So did they. The first year, you talked. Long calls, catching up on everything. Then the calls got shorter. Then they became texts. Then the text became a thumbs up on something they posted. Then came the birthday you forgot. Not on purpose. You just looked up one afternoon and realized the day had passed a week ago. You told yourself you'd call to make up for it. You never quite did. That's how the distance actually worked. It wasn't one goodbye. It was 100 small silences that each felt completely reasonable at the time. A month with no word. Then 2. Nobody decided anything. And here's the strange part. Nothing went wrong. There was no argument, no cooling off. If you passed them in an airport tomorrow, you'd hug like no time had passed. The friendship didn't break. It just got left somewhere behind you. Distance wasn't the only thing that could open up between 2 people who used to be close. Sometimes a friend didn't go anywhere at all. He just came home one day with someone new, and slowly, quietly, there was less room for you. It started warm enough. You liked her, mostly. The 4 of you went to dinner, and it was fine. A little stiff, a little careful, everyone laughing at the right moments. But the old, easy shorthand was gone. You noticed you couldn't just call him anymore. You'd call, and there'd be a pause, a muffled question in the background, a checking in. His time wasn't only his now. And you understood that. You did. There was no villain in it. She wasn't cruel. She didn't hate you. She just had her own people, her own weekends, her own idea of the life they were building. And you weren't in the blueprint. So the invitations thinned out, not cut off, just fewer. You'd hear about the barbecue after it happened. You'd learn her family came into town from a photo, not a phone call. The squeeze was gentle. That's what made it so hard to name. Here's the part nobody warns you about. You can't be angry at anyone. He didn't betray you. She didn't steal him. 2 people fell in love and built a life, and a friendship just didn't fit inside the doorway. That's all. That's the whole sad thing. Sometimes there's no spouse, no move, no reason you can point to at all. You just look up one day and realize the 2 of you don't fit the way you used to. Nobody wronged anybody. You just grew in different directions. You used to finish each other's sentences. Now you sit across a table and reach for something to say. The old stories only stretch so far. You've told them all. And once they're gone, you notice how little is left underneath. It's the little things that give it away. What he laughs at now, you don't. What you care about, he waves off. You're both convinced you're right, and neither of you wants to fight about it. So you just talk about the weather. The visits get harder to fill. Coffee that used to run for hours now wraps in 40 minutes. You both check your phones a little more than you should. And you leave feeling like you performed a friendship instead of having one. Here's the honest part. One took a long time to admit. It wasn't only him who changed. I did too. The person he grew into didn't have room for the person I'd become. That door swung both ways. So it faded, gently, without anybody's fault. And maybe that's all right. Some friendships are for a season, not a lifetime. The mistake isn't letting them go. It's pretending they failed, when really, they just finished. Growing apart, at least you can share the blame. Both of you changed. But some of the ones you lost, you have to be honest, they didn't drift from you. They kept reaching. And you were the one who went quiet. There was the text that came in on a Tuesday. Been thinking about you, we should catch up. You read it at a red light. You smiled. You thought, I'll answer tonight. You meant it too. Tonight came. Dinner, dishes, the news, bed. The message slid up the screen under newer ones. 3 days later, it felt too late to reply to. A week later, replying would need an apology, so you didn't. It happened more than once. The invitation to the cookout you said maybe to. The old friend who called twice and left a message you never returned. Each time, they held the door open. Each time, you let it swing shut. Here's the part that's hard to admit. They tried more times than you deserved. And a person only reaches so many times into silence before they decide the silence is your answer. Nobody keeps knocking on a door that never opens. So when you tell yourself these friendships just faded, be careful, some of them didn't fade. Somebody stood there holding the line out to you, again and again, and at some point you stopped taking it. That one's on you, I know it's on me. And here's the thing I noticed, watching the ones who let it drop the hardest. So many of them were men, me among them. We didn't lose our friends because we stopped caring. We lost them because we never learned to just talk. Think about how those friendships were built, not over coffee, spilling our guts. We built them shoulder to shoulder. The basketball court, the garage, the fishing boat before sunrise, the poker table on a Thursday night. The activity did the talking for us. We never had to say, I miss you, or I've been struggling. We just showed up, did the thing, cracked a few jokes, and went home feeling close. It worked. For years it worked. But an activity is a fragile thing to hang a friendship on. The league folds, a knee gives out, somebody moves for a job. The Thursday game just quietly stops getting scheduled. And when the activity ends, there's nothing underneath to hold it up. Because we never built the other muscle. The one that lets you call a man on a random Tuesday for no reason at all, just to hear his voice. That felt strange, almost embarrassing, so we didn't. And the phone stayed dark. So one day you look up and the games are gone and you realize you don't actually have anyone to just call. Not for a favor, not for a plan, just to talk. That's the ambush, waiting for a lot of us. And nobody warns you it's coming. That's the trouble with a life built on doing instead of talking. You don't notice who's missing until you get the phone call. Mine came on a Tuesday morning, a name I hadn't dialed in 9 years. He'd been gone 3 days before I even knew. 3 days the world kept turning and I had no idea. A man I once talked to every morning, and I found out the way you find out about a stranger. So I went to the service. Suit that didn't fit right, parking lot full of cars I didn't recognize, and I stood at the back because the front was for the people who'd stayed close. I hadn't earned the front. People got up and told stories. A fishing trip 2 summers back, a poker night, a hospital visit last spring, and every story was one I wasn't in. His last decade happened, the whole thing, and I was nowhere in it. And here's the strange grief nobody warns you about. I wasn't just mourning the man who died Tuesday. I was mourning the friend I'd already lost years ago without noticing. I'd buried him twice and only cried the once. I drove home and I did the math on the ones still alive, all those names, sitting quiet in my phone. And I realized the funeral hadn't cost me a friend, it just showed me the ones I'd already stopped calling. Standing at a service like that teaches you something you can't unknow, and what it taught me, driving home in silence, was that I'd been wrong about something for most of my life. Believed there'd always be time. Later. Next year. When work eased up, when the kids were older, when things settled down, I treated the people I loved like they'd keep. Like milk that never sours. I thought a real friendship was a permanent thing. Built once, standing forever. Like a house you could walk away from and come back to, and find every room exactly as you left it. But that's not what a friendship is. It isn't a monument. It's a living thing. And living things don't wait politely for you to remember them. They get hungry. They starve. That's the part one got wrong the deepest. I thought neglect was neutral. That silence just paused a friendship. But silence isn't a pause. It's a slow subtraction. Every unfed month takes a little more. So here's the lesson I paid full price for. Nothing that matters survives on its own. Not a marriage, not a body, not a friend. The ones I kept, I fed. The ones I lost, I simply stopped feeding. So if friendship starves without feeding, the fix sounds simple. Just feed it. Send the text. And yet you've been staring at that name for a week now, thumb hovering, not moving. Because here's what your brain does. It runs the math on the silence. 3 years. 5. It decides that much time needs an explanation, an apology, some grand reason for going quiet. So you start drafting the perfect message. Something that covers the gap, explains where you went, and every version sounds wrong, too heavy, too much. So you close the phone and tell yourself tomorrow. Here's the thing I finally understood. All that weight is yours, not theirs. You've been carrying the silence like a debt. They've mostly just been living their life, same as you. When someone you used to love texts you out of the blue, do you count the years? No. You feel something warm move through your chest. You think, God, I've missed him. That's what waits on the other end. Not a grievance, not a scoreboard, just an old friend surprised and glad. The message doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be sent. 4 words work fine. Been thinking about you. That's it. No apology, no essay. You're not repairing a wound. You're just knocking on a door that was never actually locked. Once you send that first awkward text, the real work is quieter. It isn't grand gestures. It's the small, unglamorous habits that keep a friendship breathing, instead of letting it fade the way the others did. Here's what actually worked for me. I stopped waiting to feel like calling. I picked one friend and set a standing time. Same day, every week. No planning, no scheduling dance. It just happens because it's on the calendar. I lowered the bar until it was almost embarrassing. No dinner reservation, no big night out, just coffee, a walk around the block, 20 minutes at a diner. The easier it is, the more it survives a busy week. I quit trying to keep everyone. You can't. So I chose a few. 3, maybe 4 people I refused to let drift, the ones worth guarding. Everyone else I loosened my grip on, and I stopped feeling guilty about it. The one that surprised me most, showing up when nothing's wrong. We call people when there's a crisis, but the friendships that lasted were the ones I tended on the ordinary days when there was no reason at all. None of it is dramatic. A repeating call, a low bar, a short list, showing up. That's the whole toolkit. Not because it's clever, but because it's small enough to actually keep doing when life gets loud again. So you tend the ones still close. But there's still that name sitting in your phone tonight, the one you scrolled past at the start of all this. Still there. still waiting. And here's the thing I finally understand. All those years I thought the silence meant they'd moved on, that I'd be an interruption. But silence isn't a wall. It's just two people both waiting for the other one to go first. Because most of them aren't angry. They're not sitting there keeping score of who called last. They're doing exactly what you're doing. Scrolling past your name, meaning to. Wondering if it's too weird now. It won't take much, not tonight. Just a name and a hand that decides to move. The years of quiet weigh almost nothing next to that. What I know now is simple. Most of them are waiting to hear from you too. If any of this resonated, I'd love to hear it in the comments, the name you're thinking about right now, or the friend you're glad you reached back to. And if you'd like to keep figuring this stuff out together, subscribe and stay with me.